Ellen. Is Councillor Duran in? Okay, we're ready to start the meeting. Thank you for coming out tonight. Councillor Duran is coming in via telephone. Councillor Bernard is out at the airport picking up his son. And going from my left, Councillor Ramsey is down at the end. Deputy Mayor Cody, Councillor Terry McLeod, Councillor Julie McCabe, Councillor Alana Yankoff. To my right, to your left, is Councillor Mike Duffy, who's the Chair of Planning and Development, Councillor Gregory Bard, and Councillor Tweel. So we're calling the meeting to order. Any declarations of conflicts? Seeing none. The agenda, Mr. Chair, only has one item, correct?
Yep.
One item, and that's 199 Grafton. So I need a motion to approve the agenda. Moved by Councillor McCabe, second by Councillor McLeod. All in favor? Okay. So I'm going to turn it over to Councillor Michael Duffy, and you can start off, sir.
Thank you, Your Worship. Good evening, everyone. I have a few administrative things to do here, so I'll move right into them. There's three separate ones in total. So, first of all, I'd like to welcome to tonight's public meeting. Council is pleased that you have joined us, whether in person, on WebEx, or live stream. After a brief staff, the ground rules for tonight are going to be as follows. After a brief staff presentation, each applicant/developer will be allotted a 10-minute, maximum of 10 minutes to provide their input to the issue, after which time members of council will be allowed to ask questions of clarity. Councils are reminded not to give their opinion on the topics being considered, as they are to remain neutral until the process is complete. Once council has finished asking questions of clarity, the public will be given an opportunity to speak, at which time each participant will be provided with 5 minutes in which to provide their comments. While a member of the public is speaking, others are asked to show respect and decorum to all participants, maintain quiet and order, refrain from disturbing the proceedings by words, gestures, or actions, including applauding, displaying flags, placards, or similar material, refrain from talking on electronic mobile devices, and ensure that all electronic devices are silent and operated in such a manner that does not interfere with the meeting or with another person's ability to hear or view the proceedings. Again, ladies and gentlemen, thank you for joining us, as we appreciate your interest and involvement in the city's planning process. I would like to next just quickly go over some COVID reminders while in this room. As you can see, there's hand sanitizers, wipes, masks are available in different sections of the room. Water stations to the right of the room facing council. We only have one room set up for this meeting, which is this room here, the courtyard. No additional rooms or overflow rooms are available tonight. We have a timer set up right in front of us here for 5 minutes. Residents will be given 5 minutes to provide their comments. Staff will clean the mics the staff will clean the mics after each resident provides their comments. There are no residents joining us by WebEx as of 2 o'clock today. We do have in attendance tonight 3 planning board members. We have Bobby, Kenny, Chris Fournier, and Rosemary Hebert, I think is here somewhere. Finally, we have planning board and council joining WebEx. Councillor Drong, as the mayor has indicated, is on the line. Shallon also, Reg and Basil. The final item I have is to just advise regarding the letters, the communications such as letters that were sent out. There was 93 letters that were sent out on Thursday, April the 15th in regards to this application. And these letters went to property owners within a 100-meter radius of the subject property as per the zoning and development bylaw. Notice of the proposed amendments were advertised in the Guardian newspaper on Saturday, April the 17th and Saturday, April the 24th. Notice was also posted on the city's website. Notices were posted on the subject property on Thursday, April the 15th. In regards to the letters, as of Tuesday, April the 20th, there are no letters of support or objection were received. However, 8 letters were received before 12 noon today. Those letters that are in your package. Comments received after noon today, up until tomorrow at noon time, will be included in the package for Planning Board in May for the May 21st weekend. Your Worship, that's all there is for the information part of it. I now have the description of what the request is, if you'd like me to read that.
Councillor Duffy, please. And who's presenting for the city? Is it Laurel Palmer Thompson?
Yes,
Okay.
Laurel.
Okay. Do you want to introduce it, sir?
I'll introduce 199 Grafton Street, PID number 342790. This is a request to amend Appendix C, approved site specific exemptions as per Section 3.11, site-specific exemptions of the Zoning and Development Bylaw to exempt 199 Grafton Street, PID 342790, from Section 30.2 regulations for permitted uses in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone, and Section 30.3 bonus height development standards in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone in order to allow a 6-story, 84-unit apartment building with parking located within and under the building. That's it, Your Worship.
Okay. So, Laurel, do you want to introduce yourself? I'm Laurel Palmer Thompson, and introduce the subject. Thank
Good
you.
evening, Your Worship, members of council, planning board, and public. Thanks for coming out tonight to hear this application. This is a request for site-specific exemption. Councillor Duffy ran through it. I'll just briefly outline some of the things that are in play. So it's a request under Section 30.2 regulations for permitted uses and Section 30.3 bonus height development standards in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone of the Zoning and Development Bylaw. So in addition to that, the application will also require a lot consolidation of 7 properties under PID number 342790, and that would be this property bounded by this dark black line. The proposal is to allow a 6-story multi-residential building consisting of 4 stories of apartments on top of a 2-story parking garage at grade with 4 additional units and a lobby at ground level. There is also 1 level of underground parking. So the applicant has submitted a written and graphic submission outlining their proposal, which was required to undergo the design review process. And the proposed building design submission was sent to an independent design reviewer. The design reviewer indicated that several variances and exemptions were required to obtain building permit approval, but supported the overall design of the building. The design was also supported by the design review board. I will run through the variances that are required for the site-specific exemption. The first one, there's a height variance to 6 stories if bonus height can be justified. So 60.7 feet is permitted. The proposed height is 70.4 feet. Therefore, a 9.7-foot variance is required. There's also a height variance to 4 stories if bonus height cannot be justified. 39.4 feet is permitted. The proposed height is 47.6 feet to the top of the 4-story. Therefore, an 8.2-foot variance is required. Flankage yard variance along Clark Street. 7.9 feet is required for the base building setback. The proposal is for a 2-foot setback. Therefore, a 5.9-foot variance is required. Step back along the 4-story on Clark Street. A 9.8-foot step back from base building is required. Therefore, combined with the required setback, a 15.7-foot variance is required. Lot width for bonus height on Hillsborough Street. 98.4 feet of frontage is required. There is 74.5 feet of frontage along Hillsborough Street. Therefore, a 23.9-foot variance is required. Side yard setback to the building located at 142 to 146 Prince Street. A 3.9-foot setback is required to be equal to the side yard setback of the existing building at 142 to 146 Prince Street. The setback for the proposed building is 1.96 feet, therefore a 1.9-foot variance is required. A variance is also required to exempt the parking structure from Section 7.11.3 of the Zoning and Development Bylaw, which states where a parking structure fronts on a street, the ground level facade shall incorporate retail, public, or other active uses, as well as provide pedestrian amenities such as an awning, canopy, or sheltered entryway. And the front facade shall be designed to conceal the parking levels and give visual appearance of a multi-story building articulated with bays and window openings. So this is just a plan view showing the location of some of the variances. This would be the Hillsborough Street side, Prince Street, Clark Street. So this line here is showing the step back. The red line, the distance between the red line and the blue is the setback along Clark Street. And down here would be the building located at 142 to 146 Prince Street. And this arrow is pointing to the distance between the proposed building and the existing small apartment building. So in terms of parking, the proposed building meets the bylaw requirements. Although the proposal removes the existing parking lot containing 88 spaces that was located behind the polyclinic building, the developer is proposing to replace the 88 parking spaces within and under the proposed building. 10% of the site is required to be landscaped. The applicant has indicated that they are providing 11,000 square feet of landscaped area. And these green spaces on this site plan show the areas to be landscaped. So I will now invite Tim Banks from APM to provide more details about the project. Tim, if you want to come up.
Just as Mr. Banks is going up, we spoke to Alex Forbes, our manager of planning. If you maintain your 6 feet of distance, you can remove your mask. I think that's all right for the protocol, but if you wish to keep your mask on, you can.
What was that? I didn't,
Thank you.
I'm sorry, I didn't hear that. The maintain 6 feet of distance for what?
6 feet is the distance required between persons, so
okay,
that's part of the protocol. Thank you.
Good evening, Mayor, councillors, planning board, guests. Thank you for coming out and thank you for allowing us to have this meeting. I'm representing the owner as the developer of the project, and as a developer in PEI and in the Charlottetown Marketplace, I'm very excited about this project. I've done lots of projects like the restoration of the K's building in downtown Charlottetown, that entire block there on the Queen Street side. I think this is a more exciting project and it'll be a better project for the community at the end of the day, so I'd like to start with it. In brief, the project is a real infill project for a downtown core. The copy of this presentation will be on our website at apm.ca. It is in the 500 lot zone of the Charlottetown, which is our downtown core. The project we're entitling it the Port House, Charlottetown being a big port. I'm going to give you some views here. There's a view from Hillsborough Street on your left and the view from Prince Street on the right. It'll show going down Clark Street. This is Clark Street during the summer. Looking at it on the left from the Hillsborough Street, looking down the street, and looking at it from Prince Street is Clark Street, most of which is a guardrail and shows the back of the what we know as the polyclinic. This is a street elevation looking from Hillsborough down the street, and to the right is looking up the street. This is the Prince Street side. If you're standing on Prince Street looking towards Maritime Electric on the right, our project would be on the left. And if you were on the other side at the Guardian and you're looking up Prince Street, the building on the right I think is now yellow, but when the picture was taken it was white. The older structure, you can see where the fire was. This is actually Clark Street during a regular winter day. You'll see the guardrail, which is on our property, and you'll see how the street has typically been maintained. You'll notice our parking lot has been cleared of snow, but this is pretty typical of what happens there on the site. The site, as we know it, is in the core. I'm just pointing out some structures around the city's core that are similar in height, if not taller. A residential property has a lower ceiling than a commercial structure, so some of these structures, like the Charlottetown Hotel, where we talk about it's 5 stories, it's actually taller than this building, ours being a 6-story. So there is a number of buildings that surround the downtown core. Typical ones like Veterans Affairs or Maritime Electric. It is as tall as our building, based upon it being commercial. The Polyclinic itself, the Sydney Suites, the new approved 7-story downtown. Just pointing out some of the structures in relationship to the height. The project as we know it is outlined. Laurel showed you on the map. This is more of a topographic view of the building outlined in red. These are the 2 structures. This is the existing Polyclinic building, and this is the proposed Port House, which is the 4-story component of the project. This is the elevation from Prince Street if you're standing across at the Guardian looking across at the building. We've taken a lot of time in terms of the aesthetics in the building. We had some comments back from the design reviewer, which we've incorporated into the project. This is it looking at it from Grafton Street. You'll notice that the front section where the car is coming out onto Prince Street is set back, the building's set back from the street. This is a view looking at it from Maritime Electric Corner. And this is a view here of looking up Prince Street, and this would be the building behind the yellow house and seeing it behind the lower section of the Polyclinic building. To look at it in scale, we've taken the buildings that are there existing and tried to graphically show it in representation. And you folks can take this drawing tonight, and you can look it up on the website, and you can go through it in detail. And if you have any questions, you can call our office, and we'd be glad to answer them for you. This is a view looking at it from, I guess it would be from the old Eaton side of the street down where the new bar is. This is a view from Prince Street, and this is a view from Hillsborough Street. The design reviewer wanted us to put brick on the elevation, which we've accommodated. This site plan shows the existing Polyclinic building, and this is the new proposed building that we're putting next to it with the courtyards in the middle. This is the survey plan of the site showing the boundaries. And this is the parking garage floor plan showing the number of parking spaces and the turning radiuses and the entrances in the building. And as I said, I'm going through this, I only have 10 minutes, so I'm going through it fairly fast. But again, it's all online for you to review. This underground space has 79 spaces, parking spaces. The This is the ground floor parking, so if this works, if I'm supposed to be able to point. So this is where you would come in off of Hillsborough Street into the parking garage, and this would be the exit onto Prince Street. This ground floor space has 60 spaces, and it has a connection, a commercial corridor over to the polyclinic building. And this is the second floor elevation of the parking garage. And again, it has 78 spaces. So in effect, we're going from, there's a debate here, we think there's 84 existing spaces in the project, and we're going to a total of 217 spaces. And it'll be a public parking garage for people to park, a fee structure similar to what you have with the other parking garages in the city. There's currently a fee structure there now. This is the floor plan elevations of this is the first floor living area, I think, or what we would call the third floor and the fourth floor. These are the elevation drawings of the building, showing the heights and the window openings and the finishes and the details of the finishes. And this is the elevation along Clark Street. Originally, we had it built to the property line, as a number of variances of projects that have happened in the downtown core. We've moved it back a couple of feet from there, but we can't go any further or we don't get the parking spaces in the parking area. On the side here, we've incorporated this all in brick down around and around the corner. We had originally tried to do it with metal. The design reviewer wanted us to ensure that the appearance of it at the street looked for a very good quality. This is the view of it if you're standing in the polyclinic and looking across, and you'll see that the parking garage at the back of the building is a low-rise. So the whole elevation is not hampering Clark Street. This is the existing polyclinic, and we're pleased to announce that we're doing a major refurbishment of the building project there. And this is our scheme for the building, the new treatment for the building to modernize it, the details of which you can be able to see online when you look at it. An existing business which is in the downtown is going to expand, and we're going to bring naturopathic medicine into the building with a renewal of leases with the PEI Health, or Health PEI. These are some of the elevation treatments of the new streetscape with the improvements to the building. So the building will have increased insulation and thermal, energy efficient heat recovery system, LED, solar panels on both structures, low flow toilets, metered water consumption, bicycle storage and repair area. That's inside the floor plans that you can read. Public and private EV charging stations will be in the building and outside the building. Carbon neutral building materials will be used in the construction of the building. It'll contribute to the vacancy rate. 60 of the new units will be designated affordable, contracted into the development agreement with the city for a 10-year period. That's part of our commitment on the project. 24 of the units will be market units. There is no penthouse. I've read some letters that said there's some kind of penthouse in the building. There's no penthouse. There's a mechanical penthouse that's, I think, 12 feet by 12 feet for elevator. The characteristics, different aspects of the neighborhood effectively have been added into the structure. We're eliminating the visually unappealing parking lot and upgrading the existing. We're reducing the need for urban sprawl. It's within walking distance of parks and schools and other amenities. increase green space on the site. In fact, that's what we are doing with the development. It's all pavement there right now. We're building a courtyard in it. It's a $21 million turnkey investment for the entire property. And it strengthens the downtown core. This is the city in developing the new bylaws for the 500-lot zone incorporated a vision for design review. An independent architect, in this case, Peter Fellows from Fredericton, a guy who's very used to projects similar to what happens in cities our size, is the one who's reviewed this project. It is online with the rest of the presentation. It's interesting to have a look at this because he's pretty excited about the project. He thinks the entire project has been very well thought out in a planning sense, everything in appropriate placement. He says it brings in an influx of new residents, much needed affordable housing, excellent downtown renewal, removal of another surfaced parking lot, a palette of high-end materials, and a nice contemporary look. He goes on to say, we give it a thumbs up. He says that if this project can live up to the perspective as illustrated, could be a welcome addition to the downtown Charlottetown. And I'll tell you something about APM. You can go look at the rendering over at the shorefront in Stratford of the building we built there. It's exactly the way we proposed it, as most of our all of our projects are. So we are pleased to present this project to the city, and I'm here to answer any questions afterwards. Our office is open basically 24/7 to answer any questions related to the project. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Banks. Any questions from councillors? You're okay? For clarification, so there are two mics. We have staff here that will sanitize the mics after any use, so please feel free to approach, give your name, and if you live in Charlottetown or elsewhere.
Joan Cumming. Good evening, everyone. Joan Cumming and I live in Charlottetown. A few years ago, the city contracted a group called the Planning Partnership to provide their expertise in an assessment of the 500 lots. It was a process that was characterized by strong community involvement, opinions and ideas were welcomed. I remember those fellows saying how impressed they were with our built heritage and that there was so much of it still left standing. Unusual, they said, for most Canadian cities have obliterated their past, and with the demise of the buildings went the stories of the people who built and were connected with them. I already wrote a letter to the councillors sharing my thoughts on this, and I hope you received it and read it. But I'd now like to read a short excerpt from the report that those gentlemen left with the city at the time. Council accepted it, and it gave me some comfort. It deals with the larger and taller buildings, which they say have the greatest civic responsibilities. And here's the text. The 500-lot area has a long history of large and tall buildings. Historic buildings such as St. Dunstan's Basilica or the Royal Charlottetown Hotel exhibit architectural grandeur that corresponds to their scale and civic importance. Architectural grandeur corresponding to their scale and civic importance. The way they are situated on their sites, the expressed massing, material quality, and design detail all work in concert to enhance their stature while positively contributing to their context. That is, what's around them. By contrast, more contemporary large-scale developments, such as the Delta Prince Edward, exhibit far lesser care for their context or design quality. Consequently, by virtue of their scale, they sit prominently and distractingly in the streetscape, constantly reinforcing the perception of large scale being synonymous with bad design. We recognize that large-scale buildings are and will continue to be part of the urban fabric of the 500-lot area. However, these developments should be directed only to where they already exist and can be accommodated, and subject to stringent conditions and performance standards. Appropriate setbacks and massing are especially important to ensuring that these buildings do not overwhelm and adversely impact streetscapes and adjacent properties with respect to such matters as sky view, can you see the sky, wind, and shadows. Given their visual prominence, these buildings should be held to the highest design standards, exhibiting landmark architectural qualities. Furthermore, these development rights ought to be privileged through a bonus afforded only in exchange for public benefits, such as heritage protection, community amenities, or public realm improvements. So, my comments. With the above in mind, I would suggest that in this beautiful city core, with other architectural gems like City Hall, churches like Zion, St. Paul's, and Trinity, all in the vicinity of this proposed structure, it should be held very stringently to the standards outlined by the planning partnership. Sincere thought and consideration will have to go into every aspect of what is built on this site, and I expect you will scrutinize design materials and requests for variances extremely thoroughly, and avoid errors that left us with the Holman Grand sitting glaringly in front of our National Historic Site, Province House. Because once these buildings are up, you're stuck with them. Thank you.
Thank you, Joan. Anyone else? Again, the mics are open.
Did I get a restart? Did I get a restart, please?
It's going to restart there. So, Andrea, if we can just keep within the 5 minutes.
Andrea Battison. I live downtown within the 100 meters. I was privileged enough to get a letter, although as I learned, the majority of the people in my block living in the co-op buildings and the apartments being tenants did not get the letter, and so they were very surprised, and many of them missed the small green notices posted on the property. Yep. Firstly, what I'd like to ask is that I noticed there are letters that are attached to this package which are available to us who are here today but are not available to the people who are watching live or may watch this recorded video. So my request is that their contents are read out here tonight so that everyone who's at home watching this live or later can hear these questions and any answers to those questions, giving the people who took the time to write letters the same amount of equal participation as we are having here tonight to have a question answered in public. I would also request that the council consider posting these letters readily available with any answers. And I'd also respectfully request that the planning board consider extending the deadline for making comments beyond that of noon tomorrow. Mr. Banks has very generously offered to answer questions, but if someone couldn't be here tonight or watch it live tonight, by the time they actually get a chance to watch it, it's too late to contact Mr. Banks so that he can alleviate any concerns or just even think about what they've seen tonight. People are at home because of COVID or scheduling difficulties. Personally, I'd be thrilled to see a really amazing building go up there, but I do have questions about this one. First of all, I noticed that the downtown mixed-use zone doesn't seem to allow for housing. Am I correct in that? Is that what the exemption's for? It allows for a parkade?
For the property, the subject property?
The subject property, the front of my letter says it's getting an exemption from downtown mixed-use zone.
Mr. Forbes? Do you have an answer for that question? Could you repeat your question, Andrea?
The front of the letter, says, we are looking for an exemption from regulations for permitted uses in downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone. So that's the first thing. And when I looked up downtown mixed use, I found parkade, but I didn't see housing. I found hotel, fire engine, veterinary clinic.
I'm going to refer it to Laurel Palmer Thompson. Laurel, can you please address that question? Thank you.
Can I get a stop on that? Is that possible?
We'll be flexible.
Okay.
The exemption isn't to allow housing. Housing is a permitted use in the downtown mixed-use neighborhood zone. The exemptions were the variances that I went through earlier in the presentation.
Okay. That wasn't clear because on the uses for downtown use, it says parkade but doesn't mention housing.
I'm sorry, I'm having a really hard
For downtown
time.
mixed use, in the bylaws, it doesn't actually list housing, it lists hotels.
It's
and
a step
parkade.
zone.
Okay, I was looking for clarification, so thank you.
Yeah.
Laurel, just while we have you there, Andrea, you asked a question about the letters being read aloud.
Yes, please.
Do we not post them on our website
They're posted on the website.
with the answers also, if we give answers to them?
To all the questions? No, we include that in the planning board report. We don't answer every question in a letter, but we provide a detailed report that's also posted online.
And that planning board meeting will be public too,
Yes.
correct? Okay.
Well, it's online, yes, it's online, but it is open to the public, but I don't believe the public can speak at it.
No, and I just, for people who have taken the time to write letters and express their concerns, I feel it would be just nice to give them the equal value of having their concerns heard and read out at this recorded forum and answered like ours will be.
Can't hear her.
My next question is, my next question is this about rezoning? Is this a minor, it looks like it's a major variance because we're way over the 15% increases. Some of them are 74%.
It's a site-specific exemption, so it's not the regular variance process. We list them as variances, but it's a different process in the bylaw. It follows the same sort of process as a rezoning process, but it's not a rezoning. It's an actual site-specific exemption where the zone remains the same, but there's detailed exemptions that are allowed for the property.
Okay. And then I guess my other concern is that this meeting tonight really only appears to be discussing a 6-story building proposal because no useful information was provided in the letters that were provided for this 4-story option. There's no drawings, there's no schematics, there's nothing. So I guess really what we're really discussing is a 6-story option. And if this doesn't get approved, if the bonus height doesn't get approved, will we need a second meeting to address the 4-story option? And the other concern I have is that the addition of the figures of the height of your building actually come out to about 75 feet 10 inches on Prince Street, or 74 feet 3 inches, depending which numbers you add up in the schematics you've provided, rather than the 70.5, which is shown in the addition of the numbers on the side of your building, which is again different, although not really much, from the 70 feet 4 inches, which has been shown in our letters. So really, are we discussing a building that's actually 5 feet higher than described in the letter, or have I missed something in my maths?
Height is always measured from grade, and it would be taken from average grade. So we've also reviewed the calculations that were provided in the drawings, and the height that was provided in the letter is what we sent out, was
Okay.
what we calculated.
Because it's actually very confusing, because your architect has drawn the number 66 feet plus 9 foot 10 inches for this penthouse mechanical shed, about 35 feet. which we-
Mechanical shed is not included in height. It's only to the top of the roof. Mechanical sheds are exempt from height.
Okay, because it seems to be added in their drawings, so it's all very confusing for somebody.
It's shown on the drawings, it has to be shown, but when we calculate height, it's not included.
All right. But could I have an answer about, are we having a meeting for a 6-story building? And if the bonus height isn't approved, do we have to have another meeting with actually getting drawings about a 4-story building?
The bonus height application still has to go to planning board, and then from planning board, it will have to go to the Affordable Housing Committee, because bonus height is based on that public benefit. Once it's determined if the bonus height is approved or not, then it's up to council to determine if they want to approve the variance at 4 stories. So they can either choose to go ahead with that variance because we've provided public notification, or if that variance isn't approved, the developer has the option to pull it back down to the required height on the for 4 stories.
Oh, okay, but we
Yeah.
haven't seen a drawing for 4
Yeah.
stories.
Laurel, can we just ask Mr. Forbes, did you want to add something to Mr. Forbes? Can we turn that on, guys?
Your worship, just a point of clarification. It's the planning committee that will have the discussion in
Not
regard
the
to
planning board.
Not the Affordable Housing Board.
Thank you.
So it's the planning committee will oversee the proposal dealing with the public benefits, and they will concur, or they'll provide some direction on that. Just thought I would clarify that. Thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, so perhaps I've missed it, but if the bonus height is not permitted, which the proponent is about 75% short, or is 25 feet short of his height, if that is denied, does this go to another meeting where we look at a building with plans that has 4 stories and designs?
Laurel, can you just clarify what she said, or did you hear her question?
I couldn't hear
Yeah,
her.
it's
It's really
difficult.
hard to hear with her mask
Yeah,
on.
anyways, she
All
wants,
right, so, sorry. With,
And I've got this noise above my ear, too.
sorry.
The question is, all the letters and information that we got describe a 6-story building with its requested variances. There is no information provided on a 4-story building to make comment on. Because we seem to be asking for 2 things. Can we have 6? And if we can't get 6, can we get 4? But I haven't seen drawings of a 4-story building.
Because they're not applying for a 4-story building, they're applying for a 6-story
Six-story,
building. And if bonus height is not approved, then we will look at the 4-story option, and a variance is required for that.
also.
That's
And
right.
as I said, then you would be able to, the developer would have the option, if council doesn't approve the variance to 4 stories, the developer has the option to pull it back to the bylaw requirement.
Would it require a public meeting for the
No,
variance?
it doesn't. A variance does not require a public meeting.
I see. Okay. Thank you.
Okay. Thank you, Andrea.
Somebody else?
So the mics are open. Just please introduce yourself, where you're from. Thank you.
Yes, my name's Doug MacArthur, and just a few comments I have on the project.
Excuse me, Doug.
Yeah,
Could you reset the...
She's doing that. It just takes a few minutes.
Thank you.
okay.
Go ahead there, Mr. MacArthur.
Just a few comments I have on the project. First off, that it's affordable housing, so that's needed. There's no question about it. Infilling of that block, I think, also is a useful thing. I've got big problems with it being a 6-story, 70-foot building with variances. Like a building is essentially a cube. It's got 6 sides. This even has 7 variances. It's got more variances than it has sides, and that's a very unusual situation. And it's caused because this project is attempting to build much too large on that particular lot. And it's that simple. And so I think it needs to be scaled back some, but I think it could be a good project. A couple other comments I have on it is Mr. Banks mentioned Peter Fellows and the comments he had on this project. Peter Fellows was also the design reviewer for 15 Haviland, and he had even better comments on 15 Haviland. Other architects have called 15 Haviland an urban design disaster, and if and when it's ever approved, there will be an IRAC appeal against it. So I think you need to be careful about these comments. The design review committee that looked at this, they met as well in 15 Haviland for 17 minutes to approve it. So I think...
Mr. MacArthur, can you just stay on the application, please, which is the project between Prince and Hillsborough Streets?
Well, I'm showing the points that were raised, not to put too much credence in a couple of those points. Anyway, I think it can be a good project if it is cut back to a reasonable level. But I think the city needs to set its bar much higher than it's doing and make sure that projects are going to be good for the next 100 years. And that would be my main point. And I think this is a recurring theme right throughout the city, that there needs to be a much higher bar than we've seen from the city. Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Okay, the mics are open. Just to make sure that everyone has. Okay. Andrea, if you want to, you can please just try to, and if you can take down your mask just to ask your questions.
I will, that's fine. Thank you. Thank you for allowing me the second option. It was just a lot of confusing points at the beginning, so thank you for clarifying that. I did notice there were just inconsistencies with the renderings, that penthouse/mechanical shed wasn't shown. I am concerned about the exit from the parkade. It's covered, it hides vehicles. I walked down in front of my house towards Grafton, and I just about, I freak out every time that really steep angle entry into the underground parking for the building at Prince and Grafton. It's not marked as a parkade entrance. It's hidden. If you don't know it, you can get, you could get hit by a car quite easily. This pictures here show a covered exit for the parkade, and I'm wondering why it's covered. Could maybe Mr. Banks answer that question? I don't think it's safe.
Do you have other questions? Can you list your questions, Andrea? Do you have a few? Do you have many more?
Yeah, I noticed a few of us were looking at the design for the parkade, and we can't find any ramps for getting from one level to the other. Okay. So we're wondering...
Mr. Banks, just before you answer, Andrea, can you just list your questions? Because this is where it takes up the time. He can write them down. Okay. Please.
All right, so covering of the parkade exit on Prince. The design renderings don't show a good view of Clark Street. Clark Street is going to have a wall about 70 feet high by, 178 feet, I can't remember, long, straight up 2 feet from the street. Yeah. Clark Street is a street. Why isn't it being treated as a street instead of a back lane?
Yeah. Do you have any other questions?
I think that will, and it's not staggered, like, away from those shorter buildings around it. I think it would have been nice to show these sketches, the elevations, with the buildings around them in scale, to show what shadow effects you're going to have. This morning sun comes over the east, and some of those people are going to be living in shade.
Okay, Mr. Banks, do you have those questions down? Are you all right with that, sir?
I have a couple of them. With respect to the exit off onto Bryn Street from the parkade, with technology today, we can easily put markings, alarms that advise the pedestrians when traffic is coming in and out of the building. No problem doing that, and we'll incorporate that into our design.
I'm not sure that that covers people making a left turn into the building.
Excuse me, I don't...
People coming down Prince Street, turning
They're not
left.
going into the building that way. They're coming in from Hillsborough Street.
I see, okay. But
And
why is it covered?
they're exiting out there, and so there will be an alarm system letting people on pedestrians
I
on the
see.
sidewalk
Okay,
know.
thank you. Thank
Okay?
you. Mhm.
Did you have the second question there, Mr. Banks? I think it was...
Well, the elevations are online for every elevation of the building, and it shows all the dimensions, the heights. And with respect to the 2 or 3 feet difference in the height of the building, it relates to the city bylaw where they determine an average street elevation to determine the height. So on one drawing it may say 71 feet and another it may say 70, and the city have to determine it by going around the entire building to get an average grade to come up with the number that they put in the notice. The other thing is we could do a 4-story apartment structure on the site and lower the building, but that would be eliminating 130 parking spaces in the downtown. And variances are something that the city in their new parkade that they built on, or extension that they built on Kent Street, had the same requirement as us. It was supposed to have retail in it. It was supposed to have shops on the ground floor, and it was supposed to be under 39 feet. But we're in a city and we're in a downtown core. And the simple truth is that we believe this is a great infill project for the city.
Okay. I'd still like to differ with you on the rendering of Clark Street.
I'll go back to, I have a
Yeah.
rendering on Clark Street.
I think there's some really colorful people in the front of the view of Clark Street.
Well, there's looking at it
No.
from,
What we're lacking as a nice, pretty color view is someone standing in their backyard in Clark Street and looking across at this wall that goes up 70 feet, give or take. And it stretches, I forget the number, but it's almost 200 feet, if I'm correct. So I didn't see that rendering to give the perspective when you go down Clark Street.
we can add it to the drawing. It's easy enough to do.
Because I think of all the sides and the facades of this building, that is going to have the most negative impact of all. You're going to walk down there, and I don't care if you're 2 feet taller than me, you're going to look up and you're going to see 70 feet up, and it's going to be metal or whatever it is, and it's going to block the sun for everybody.
Well, there's Clark Street right there, and
Yeah.
I don't see the backyard. I see cars and...
There are backyards if you actually walk the whole
Okay,
length.
but I think we're going from that telephone pole towards the
Still,
DVA
there's-
building.
yeah,
The
there-
other down farther where the homes are. I don't,
Yep.
we have a lower elevation.
You have a lower elevation at Hillsborough, but towards Prince, that's where your 70
Yeah,
feet
for
goes.
quite
And
a
there's a lot of
distance.
apartment dwellers
From that
there.
telephone pole down is the lower elevation.
Yeah, but there's a lot of apartment dwellers there that are never going to see sun in the
Are
morning.
they here?
They didn't get letters because they're probably tenants, and there was small little lime
But
green
there-
8.5 by 11
I was
posters.
just asking if there was
Yeah.
one
I don't know.
here.
No.
Okay.
Okay. Did you want another, that's,
That's probably it. The
Okay.
rest will be in written form.
Thank you.
Maybe we've got lots of time left, and we can read those letters that were sent in, if council would approve that.
the mics are open?
Any other questions for me?
Just one second. What's that? Yeah. Okay, I don't see any other questions. Oh, thank you, sir. Thank you.
Hi, folks. I'm Doug Dalrymple, and I'm going to read my notes because of the time constraint and that, so excuse me for
Can you
that.
turn that up a bit? Or?
My wife and I live at 218 Kent Street, and Sharon's operated the Duchess of Kent Bed and Breakfast since 1982. So I have 3 or 4 points, and I know this is a nuts and bolts one that doesn't get into the large philosophy of doing this project, but she has 3 off-street parking spaces for guests, and they're accessed off of Kent Street. And we also have neighbors that also all have parking along the back. So our concern is, will there be any restriction to access along Clark Street during the construction? We approached the planning committee, and they indicated that this will probably be addressed through the site-specific review process.
Okay, what street is it?
Well, we live on 218 Kent Street, but our property goes through to, actually that picture there, the gray block building, the little gray block building,
Yeah?
that's our building, and the spaces before it is our parking. So I guess our concern, I realize you folks.
I don't think it'll be, we're not intending to close any streets.
Right.
We're building the building down in Hillsborough, and we had to close it on Richmond Street, and we kept it open the whole time, and we had one day where we had to cross the road.
And I don't know the house or construction techniques and cranes and stuff, but it is important to us, sort of thing.
Yeah.
So we just thought we wanted to be on record.
Yeah.
And if the project goes ahead, all of a sudden, you know, we're not down screaming at somebody saying. The other thing, which Mr. Banks has already addressed, we think it's appropriate to do the brick veneer facade all along Clark Street. This is a big project. It's going to be there for a long time, and we felt that it's appropriate. The review architect and the planning committee both seem to agree on that, and I guess Mr.
Yep.
Banks has agreed on it.
Yep.
A quick question, the 2-story portion of the parkade that goes towards Hillsborough,
Hillsborough,
towards our end of the block,
Yep.
is there any use planned for on top of the roof?
We're doing a green space there. I think it's on the drawings. We're having a...
Okay, I maybe missed that.
Yeah,
one.
there's a public green space there for the tenants and a green area. We're doing the entire roof kind of like a model for the tenants to use.
Okay.
Yeah, so it's all a green space. And I think
Okay.
it's, Kane, does it show it on our drawings? Yeah, it's noted on the drawings.
Okay.
So I think you'll find it there, but
Okay.
we're doing that for sure.
And the other comment I have is we've lived there for 40 years, and that's been our backyard, and we've looked at the parking lot for 40 years, and the previous owners did nothing to soften it up, landscape it, make it look better. So we would like to see this project go ahead, whether how the experts, you folks decide on the height of the building. I'm not in that league, and it's up to you folks. We're going to take your wisdom on that one. But right now, we look at a parking lot and a red brick 5-story polyclinic. So this infill is a good thing, but how you decide, it's up to you folks in terms of the height and all that sort of stuff. With that, I'll...
Thank you.
Thank you, sir. Ellen just gave me a note here that if you're speaking, please get close to the mic because it's not being picked up on our feed. Mic still open?
Want me to speak to it now?
Yeah, just one second. Do you want to close there, Mr. Banks, or do you want to say any other comments?
Again, our project is online. We'll do our best to answer any questions publicly or privately by contacting our office.
Okay. So to address Andrea's request that the letters be read, Mr. Chair, do you have any comments on that? You have to.
Yes, I do, Your Worship. The purpose of this meeting here tonight, the public meeting, is for the general public to come and share with us their knowledge of the project, and so that the members of council here, and specifically the members of planning board, have the information. Now, some people choose to come in person, as you have tonight. Some people choose to listen in by WebEx. Other people choose to write letters. So we have the letters here as information. We're not about to read letters back out to you people. We have the information from the folks that wrote in, so they'll be distributed to all of council in their package and also to the planning board. So there's no value added to reading letters back out that we've received for our purposes only. So there'll be no reading of letters tonight. Thank you, Your Worship.
Mr. Forbes, do you want to add anything to that comment?
Good water.
Your Worship, so the letters that are, when the letters go out into the community, when people respond to the letters, they're asking you questions, the council and the planning board. It's the staff's job when it goes back through the planning board and gets back to council to make sure that those questions are answered. So the communication is directly with the council and the planning board to determine which of those comments they really want to put a lot of attention on. Thank you, Your Worship.
Plus, as Laurel mentioned, the letters are public content, so they're up on the website?
Correct, yep.
Okay.
Thank you.
Mr. Barrett, did you want to speak?
Thank you, Your Worship, councillors. I came this evening as being a representative of a neighbor, I guess, in that I'm the clerk of session of Zion Presbyterian Church, which has been across the street now since 1913. I came specifically because for the last 2 or 3 decades, ever since the federal government expropriated our parking lot to build Veterans Affairs, we've been using the parking lot of the Polyclinic every Sunday morning. We have about 350 in attendance, and quite a number of people utilize the parking lot. So I came wearing that hat this evening and was very pleased to learn that there would be 213 spaces underground or in the parkade directly across the street. Obviously not all taken up by the residents of the 84 apartments, but that there should be even more space available than there had been before. So from that standpoint, and with my church hat on, I was quite pleased to learn that. Now, taking my church hat off, so I'm not speaking on behalf of that congregation. While some of you may think I'm against development from a previous lifetime, there was a point raised, about certain jewels within our community, whether it be the Charlottetown Hotel or St. Paul's or the Basilica. The thing about these beautiful architectural buildings in any city, whether it's Prague or Amsterdam or whether it's Charlottetown, is that the beauty of these buildings is, in my opinion, enhanced even to a greater degree when we see the contrast of more modern and more up-to-date buildings being constructed, particularly within a downtown core. If you go to any of the great cities of the world, you will see some outstanding and very modern architecture in total contrast to a building that may be across the street. It actually complements these antiquities and at the same time have a certain aesthetic themselves. Having looked at the renderings and looking at this infill space, I think it complements the neighborhood. I think it complements some of the older buildings that are in the area. And from an impact standpoint, with regards to neighborhoods, as opposed to trying to build this building on Richmond Street or, heaven forbid, Traynor Street, it has such little impact. You've got a medical center on one side, you have a bar on the other side, you have a church across the street, and you have an open space to Hillsborough Street. So if this can't work in that spot, where in the downtown core could it work? So just from a personal standpoint, I would support the project and look forward to potentially having 84 new members coming to Zion every Sunday. So.
It's all about the members, filling the pews. I know First Baptist uses the Fitzroy Parkade on Sunday for their services too. Okay. Well, we're going to close. Any closing comments, Mr. Chair?
No, Your Worship. That's fine. Thank you.
Okay. I need a motion to adjourn. Okay.
Thank you.
All in favor? Good. Thank you for coming out. Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Thank you. That's not someone trying to get a question in. Hello, hello, hello.